this morning. Today we're going to be in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 16. We're going to finish the Christmas story. Our suggested memory verse comes from Matthew 2:2, saying, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him." And if you enjoy this, remember to like, subscribe, and share. And thank you for watching me today. Just for fun, here are some words you can try to unscramble. And we'll go over the answers of these later. And so we're starting in Matthew chapter 2, verse number 1. And it says, "Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem." Okay, now you have to stop and think. It says, there came wise men. Who is calling them wise men? You think about it. Matthew is writing this, and he sees them as wise men. And that's saying something because, if they're coming from the east to Jerusalem, I don't think these are Jews. And you think about it, how did they know what this star meant? How did they know what to look for? Apparently, they knew what stars were supposed to look like, or what they usually look like, and apparently they saw something different. They're wise enough to know. In fact, here, let's go to verse number 2. Saying, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are coming to worship him, and are come to worship him." They're wise enough to know that Christ was born. Honestly, most likely, I think God showed them the star. But they're seeing something they've never seen before. They saw something that's never happened before. For them to see it and know what it meant, that has to be God showing them. And they traveled all this way to worship him. They came all this way from wherever they came from. They made an effort to travel all this way to worship him and bring him gifts, even though I know it didn't say the gifts yet. Not only did they recognize the star and what it meant, but they had faith. Here they are, they're searching for a new king of a different land than where they're from. Okay, now, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Herod is the one that Rome named as King of the Jews. Rome pronounced Herod the King of the Jews. But here these wise men are saying Jesus was born the King of the Jews. So God is the one that is calling Jesus the King of the Jews. So this isn't going to go over very well. Here's Herod, and he realizes somebody's born that is threatening his position. And it says, "We have seen his star." And to me, there's just a lot in this verse because, again, these men, they're not even Jews, but they're calling this his star. So they recognized that there's something about this child that's being born. And it just shows that they have great faith. And we go to verse number 3, and it says, "When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him." Herod was troubled because, like I said, here's these men coming. I've heard people say that they were kings from other lands. I don't know. But here they're coming all this way to worship this new king. And Herod, that's making Herod jealous. That's making Herod mad. So he's troubled. But this says he was troubled and all Jerusalem with him. And I've heard that Herod was a cruel ruler. He had killed his wife, his mother in law, and three of his sons. And the saying went that it was safer to be Herod's pig than Herod's son. And that's because Jews aren't allowed to eat pork. So the pigs are safe, but his sons weren't. And we go to verse 4, and verse 4 says, "And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes together, of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born." And it says he demanded where he would be born. This makes me believe that Herod knew all about the prophecy. He didn't ask what they were talking about. He asked, where is it going to happen? Did you ever think about that? If Herod was a Jew, he probably knew all about this since he was a child. He knows this is the Messiah. He's recognizing that the Messiah is born. But his goal is to kill him, knowing who he is. And to me, that's a very scary verse. Verse 5, and they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Now, this is the prophecy. The prophecy was originally in Micah. It says, but thou, Bethlehem Ephrath, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is, to be ruler in Israel, those whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. And so here we have these wise men. They've come from Jerusalem, assuming, they're probably thinking that the Jewish leaders are going to be happy about this event. That they'd be aware of it. They'd be excited that their Messiah was born. But they didn't realize that their whole goal was to kill him. I don't think they ever even thought that that would be their desire. We go to verse 7 to 10. It says, then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. The wise men were happy when they saw the star because they knew what it meant. And the wise men, they searched and searched for Jesus, and God led them straight to the child. But, it doesn't say that Herod even looked for him. So it doesn't sound like Herod wanted to come worship him. Herod didn't say, hey, show me where it is. Let us come. Let's go worship him too. To me, that just shows that Herod had wrong motives. And we go to verse 11. And when they were come into the house, talking about the wise men, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay, do you see that word house? And when they were come into the house, there are different theories here. Some say that the wise men didn't go to the manger scene because of the word house. They say that Joseph built a house and lived there for about 2 years until the wise men finally showed up. And I think about this, and this is just me, and it doesn't matter one way or the other probably, but I'm thinking here you have, Jesus' birth is the most important day ever. It was prophesied at least 700 years before it happened. Why would God want the wise men to be late? Why wouldn't he want the wise men to be there? You know, why wouldn't God just put the star in the sky earlier so they could be at the manger? And so I have a really hard time with this theory that the wise men didn't go to the manger scene, because I believe they did. But if you believe otherwise, it's no big deal. That's just my thought. I look at, we go back to Luke and we look. It says she brought forth her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger. It doesn't mention a barn or a stable or a cave. House is the only word that's ever used. Um, and some say that in their houses, that the bottom floor of the house was a place for the most valued animals to be housed, especially during bad weather. And it kept them from being stolen, or it kept other animals from harming them. Um, and people say the top floor was the primary residence for the family. Um, this would explain why there was a manger. That's where the animals were kept, but I don't know. But either way, it doesn't matter. But I believe they were at the manger scene. But even if they weren't, um, the wise men showed a lot of faith by going and finding the child. Um, and when they were coming to the house, reading verse 11 again, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And these wise men, they knew that Jesus was the king. And you never appear before a king without bringing him gifts. And they brought gifts. They brought gold. Gold is a symbol of divinity. Frankincense is used in worship. Myrrh symbolizes suffering, maybe predicting later when he would be crucified, and all the suffering and pain he would go through. But they brought him these gifts. Okay, going to verse number 12, we're going to read the next 3 verses. And being warned of God that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. So, God appeared to Joseph in a dream again. Or no, this is the wise men. I'm sorry. God appeared to the wise men in a dream and told him, go back to Herod. His motives are wrong. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto Joseph in a dream. I got ahead of myself. So the Lord appeared unto Joseph in a dream again, because remember, he sent his angel to appear to Joseph in the dream the first time, telling him to go ahead and marry Mary. Now he's appearing to him in a dream again, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. And then we get to verse 16, and you think, let me read it first. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. And I think of that. Some think this means that Jesus would have been 2 years old. I don't know how long it took Herod to realize the wise men weren't returning to him. Today when something happens because of social media and our electronics and the internet and everything, we know within minutes. If a child's missing, within minutes it's already reported everywhere. But in Bible days, it wasn't like that. They didn't even have telephones. And so the news spreading would have been very slow. Um, I think Herod probably chose an age older than he thought Jesus was just to make sure that he got rid of him. But that's my thought. Herod knew, and I think of Herod, and this doesn't make Herod look really good, because here's Herod. He knew this birth was prophesied. He knew. I have to think that he knew this was God. He knew this was Christ because the prophecy and everything happening, these people coming and saying, "Where is he at?" And I'm thinking that Herod had to know what was going on, but he still tried to kill him, and but Joseph, God told Joseph to flee with Jesus. Jesus is protected. And this is what we celebrate on Christmas. We celebrate the birth of Christ. And I just want to say Merry Christmas. Um, and if you enjoy this, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Our suggested memory verse is Matthew 2:2. Here's the scrambled words again. You can pause it for a few minutes and see how many of these you can figure out. And here I'll tell you the answers in a little bit.